Dishes. Don't do dishes, and neither should you. Oh, fishes. Don't make wishes. Wishes that never come true. That's a cynical view of fish folk. I'm not gonna take it no more. 'Cause I'm a Kuotoa, what you call the deep ones, I don't even know. Oh, fishes. Greetings, programs. Hanker and Fernell here. Another episode of Drunkens and Dragons, no big deal, just how to play D&D a little bit more better than you used to. As for me, well, we got a mission on our hands, so there's no point dilly-dallying around with a bunch of introductory crap. What was the message? Oh yeah. A lot of people have been sending me some private messages about monetizing on the channel, getting what's due. Because yes, I do put some work into this, but I never got into it for the money. But hey, if you want to help me out, please throw $5 in the tip jar. You can probably see this because it's HD, right? Wait, I moved it the wrong direction. There we go. Okay. High definition, you can read every word on this board because of my impeccable all caps handwriting technique. This is a summary of my 5th edition campaign so far. Buy this one. You have to get this book. You don't need the other ones. Let your players get the PHB, and the Dungeon Master's Guide is just purely fluff. But this is a masterpiece. The Dungeon Master's Guide, the first day, literally, that you could get it delivered. I think it actually came a day early, so in your face, person who didn't get it a day early. So hell yeah, D&D 5th edition, you're awesome. Definitely the best edition since 2nd edition. I'm going to go out there and say it. I think it's better than 3.5, which was awesome. Whew. But the campaign started way back then. Now, if you take a closer look, the campaign actually started before 5th edition. It started right up here on number 1. So if you look at the chart, the codification, symbol language of this chart is that each circle equals 1 night of gameplay. Each square equals 1 board of gameplay. Meaning 1 sort of terrain board, like you guys know, a room design, if you will. So some nights, I think our biggest one was last 4th of July. We did a marathon all day with the air conditioning. That was 4 boards in 1 session. That was a lot for us. That was 10 hours of gaming. Which, fuck yeah. So I just wanted to walk you guys through it. Why? Why, Hanker and Fernell? Why would you do that? A lot of times in tabletop culture, we're constantly talking about what's about to happen, or what we're working on, or what we're preparing for our players. And very seldom do I see thorough retrospectives of what has happened. Now, sometimes on podcasts they'll do some of this stuff, but honestly the intros on podcasts are so long I never ever get to the actual content. It can be useful to those of you who are setting out on the journey. Now, in this particular case, yeah, I'm looking back on the journey, right? But I think what it shows you is with an aggressive group, a dedicated group, good preparation and focus and, creative innovation and constantly having fun with the game, this much crap can happen in that span of time. And it's awesome. We're talking 27 nights of gameplay. A lot of beginning DMs are staring down the barrel of this big game and they're going like, where do I even freaking begin? Okay, well, this might give you an idea of where it can go, and that might give you a good sense of being more confident as you start in on the beginning of your awesome campaign, which you're gonna freaking do because you want to hang out with your friends. My good friend Zach Arnston, who I miss you, dude, let's hang out. He turned me on to the Burning Wheel, and whoa, my mind was ignited in a conflagration of creative pyromania. Play a night of it and instantly realized it was not the game system for us. It did not fit our style, and it was crazy and awesome. The character creation was really fun, but the combat just was not what we were used to from being kids. being teenagers and everything, having fun with the game. So we just couldn't stick to it. It just didn't take. But that was fine because it's too late. The story was underway. Boom! We, through some sort of hand waving, we moved from night 1 with the Burning Wheel into the next 3 nights of gameplay, which were the Phandelver boxed set. Cragmaw Hideout, Cragmaw Castle, the town of Phandalin, and the Iron whatever dwarves. We changed all the names, and then I invented the horse mines, and everything kind of went crazy. The Green Dragon and the Great, the Flame Skull, and all that fun stuff. We took a slightly different path, but we wound up under Red Brand Manor in Phandalin after 3 nights of gameplay, and encountered this massive fissure. So if you're working your way through Phandelver and you're like 2-3 nights into the game and you're still a little shady on all the details and making up your own homebrew and taking it your own direction, that's exactly what happened to me. So feel confident. Fuck yeah. Ooh. The fissure. So the Nothics underneath Red Brand Manor definitely got the best of my group. And when my group plummeted into this chasm, the dynamics of my group needed to change. I had my great friends, Adam and Bob and Paul, all playing. We had a Dragonborn, we had, geez, what was Bob? Some kind of dwarven bard, I imagine. And then Paul, who's playing the elf, Florian Evermoon. So if you guys have been watching my videos, you know that Florian Evermoon is still in the party. But the social dynamic in this party, it didn't quite add up right. We had maybe too many alpha personalities. We had maybe too many people with too much experience in D&D. And you guys maybe have experienced this. My friend Adam is a professional dungeon master. So nibble on that for a moment. My buddy Bob is one of the craziest, most epic bard, half-orc, D&D hardcore mofos I've ever known. And same with Paul, he's been playing D&D since he was a teenager. And so it might have been too much compressed D&D power. I killed 2 of the party members and basically left their player fates hanging, took a brief hiatus, and then restructured my group to try to give it a little bit of a different tone. We just had a sort of an overpowered, whoa kind of tone. Florian Evermoon, Paul's character, landed at the bottom of the chasm and the other characters did not make it. Their fate remains unknown. So I still hope that those 2 guys, Bob and Adam, if you're watching tonight, Eelray, Eelbay, and Grundle, what was your name this time? That we play again. I know we will because you guys are my brothers. But Florian Evermoon makes it to the bottom of the crack, fell all the way into the Underdark. Now, before that happened, there had been talk that these fissures were opening all over Toril, all over the Sword Coast, right? And Florian Evermoon is the first individual to fully experience this phenomenon firsthand. Now, stay with me, because the fracturing of Toril, of the continental plates, plays all the way down through the campaign to this clutch moment. Florian and friends then move through this next set of Underdark rooms. So you see the Underdark tag here. The Underdark tag goes all the way down here to, what is this? Night number 12. So the next 8 nights, so that's probably 16 weeks of calendar time. That's 4 months of gameplay happens right in here. And this is when we're in the Underdark. And during these various escapades, the saying that my players developed when it just kept developing was fucking Underdark. A mass of eaten out alien husk would burst open, revealing thousands of baby spiders, and they'd just be like, fucking Underdark. So escape is where they basically showed up in jail cells. A lot of their gear was destroyed and they had to exit the opening room. But still, this is like 2 hours of gameplay. The Titan Gate, a huge doorway, with an army of skeletons, and they had to get the door open, get through it, and let it slam to stop the army. And then the notorious Rat Room. The Rat Room is the first room I did on Drunken and Dragons by the moniker of Room Design. So go watch that video if you're into that kind of stuff. Next, we move on to the next night, which was Flowstone Forest and Corrosion Cave. This is where I got into my gelatinous cubes, I got into my rust monsters, and I started to work the players into this concept that this game is going to be 10 times more deadly than any D&D you've ever played, and I want you on your toes. And man, Corrosion Cave is where that really... Whoa. Corrosion Cave was also the first time that we met Lord Soth, but he only appeared to laugh at the party. The party was way too level to even mess with him, so he appeared and laughed. He did not reappear until... Good God. Until... here. That's crazy. So that was night number 6. So night number 7, we have the Shattered Stair, another great room design video I hope you guys should go watch. But basically moves the dungeon concept into a very 3D space. Swordstone. So I think there's a time lapse of that night of gameplay, which is where they needed to go ring this bell-like stone to abolish all evil in a certain section of the Underdark. This is also the first time that Hanker Infernale, as an NPC in our world, made an appearance with his wagon full of beer. Next we have Night 8, which had Cade. The other title for that night was A Clever Trap, which was basically our halflings. We have 2 halflings in the group. Their brother was held in this cage, but he's an experiment in this Umber Hulk mutation experiment. And he actually can't control himself, and he wants to kill his own brothers. Then finally, the Duergar Gate. This was a huge encounter that I had ready. A giant gate with all these mechanics, and the players actually had a really high loot roll on a previous night. I think it was night number 5. And they got the rock feather, if you guys want to look that up in your DMG. But they used the rock feather and they flew over the entire Duergar Gate, so we spent the second half of the night just celebrating. Okay, then we go on to night number 9. This is when they discovered a settlement down in the Underdark, where Drizzt Do'Urden, no other than from the Salvatore novels, was down there trying to coordinate a peace between elves and the dwarves to stop the Duergar curse, because the Duergar were spreading, because Lord Soth had put this experimental mutation curse on everything. Anyways, that moved through some various phases, and then we had a night, well, this section here, actually, it might have been a separate night, but Rescue was when Florian couldn't make it one night. We actually wove that into the story that he had been captured and we had to go rescue him. He wound up with the Umber Hulk experiment in him, and he was slowly turning into a little bit of an Umber Hulk over the course of the campaign after that night. But kind of it came with some powers and abilities that made things a little interesting. Next up, we're still in the Underdark on night 10. And we did a whole thing in the Duergar mines. And again, you guys can go look at the video. Cranes and ladders and a lot of sheer drops. This was an epic night where our rogue dropped his magic bow into the void on a bad critical fail that maybe I harshly adjudicated. He'll never let me forget it. But then we also had a huge encounter with the carts. This is an extremely important night because our wizard used the Formless Magic Book, which was somewhat designed and inspired by the DCC system. In a pinch, the Duergar had him against the wall. It was over almost. And our wizard used this risky Formless Magic Book to try to return this Duergar to his original form, to his dwarven form. He succeeded on the roll, and that dwarf became Boot Myron, who is the 5th player in our group. So he actually created a player in our group with this spell. And I don't know if you guys have ever had that happen in a campaign, but for me, it was the first time. It was absolutely fantastic. So we knew we had to get a player to play this character, Boot Myron. And that's what happened, and Boot became an integral part of our group, and I can't even imagine the group without him. So that was night number 10. Night 11, we had the second choice, the one they didn't really want to face, to go ring another swordstone, which was the Hive. The Hive is this bowels of the earth covered in secreted resin and juicy insecty bits. Just horrible. There was a collapsing cave, which there's a design video for. We had a bullet. They overcame the bullet with a water elemental that they had in a stone, another great loot roll. A young purple worm, which was a slightly nerfed purple worm, but with the same ingestion mechanic. And actually the ringing stone, which is this sort of magic item that they used to abolish all the evil in the area, had been ingested by the worm. So they had to go inside the bowels, get the stone, blow the thing. Just a horrible, horrible encounter. One of the deadliest encounters, by the way, in our entire campaign was definitely the young purple worm. Whew! Okay, moving on. Then we had the Rift, another room design video. So if you want to go dig back through my my backlog, the Rift was a crazy time distortion stat reducing encounter. Now, I'm always really sketchy with reducing character stats because like this can be demoralizing to players. This is like a George R. R. Martin type maneuver to take away stat points from you in some kind of twisted effort to make you keep wanting to play. But it worked great. The encounter was amazing. This is when we had the natural 20 on the hug roll, which was a huge moment in our campaign. One of the top 5 pivotal moments in our campaign. Absolutely amazing encounter, where the players really overcame the encounter with just the love in their hearts. And I love when that stuff happens. So anyways, that was the Rift. Then they finally made it out of the Underdark. So this is night 12 of gameplay. We finally got out of the Underdark, only to find that they had experienced time dilation, and they returned to the Sword Coast they knew 90 years in the future, 96 to be exact. And everything that they loved had either been destroyed or had changed, and they were all assumed dead. A lot of things had changed. Lord Soth was on the rise. He was sieging Waterdeep. The whole thing was a mess. Okay, whoa. To the next section. So this whole section here is the Heroes of Lork. So this is 18 through 30. So this is 6 nights of gameplay here. So you can figure about 12 weeks of gameplay. So the next 3 months or so, maybe 4 months if you give or take missing a night. So these are large arcs of gameplay. So first they emerge, they're in Edgewood, which if you're looking at your Sword Coast map and following along, Edgewood is out by the Black Road where the desert begins. And then they make their way out of there. They have the Displacer Beasts. They met some of the agents of Soth's army who later became their friends. They wind up near Dawn Pass. They're just trying to get to Lork, which is the nearest large town. They have not gotten supplies or really even rested in 4 months of D&D gameplay. That's how brutal of a DM I am. There's some Duergar, there's some humans, they're both working. It seems like things are a little off. This used to be a peaceful pass. Great. By then, they're starting to reach, some of them level 5. I think a few of them were still level 4. Then we took Refuge, which was an encounter we actually sort of played out over text on Facebook. It was really fun, just kind of hiding and kind of resting. And then the Mines of Lork, which if you guys look at that video, that is when they're just coming down toward Lork and they realize like, whoa, this is no longer under the control of good forces. This is an orc Duergar town where they're mining silver for the sieges of towns for Lord Soth's army. So, whoa, things are getting crazy. Okay, then this is our huge night that we did. This was the adventures in Lork. So they get to town, they meet some influential people, and there are many errands to be done. Now, I gave them lots of side quests. I think there were 5 total side quests. They did 4 of them, all in one huge day of gameplay. It was just amazing. So we did the Iron Bats, which was this rogue leading us down through this deadly cave. The rogue turned out to be a traitor. They encountered the siege machine. You guys are probably familiar with that. Then we had Lord Unuz, who is the mayor of Lork, who is good, but he's under evil influence, and he wants to sort of bring the town back to what it should be. They gazed upon the inspiring window, the stained glass window, which made you choose your alliance and different stuff. Then we had the Silver Vein. This is the actual mine where they're mining silver for Lord Soth, and there is an Umber Holder there, a mutated Beholder Umber Hulk, with this pulley mechanic where you had to go back and forth across this chasm. Totally insane. Florian lost a bunch of his gear. It's crazy. And then we have the Stubborn Woods, which you guys, I recently did a live stream video about that design, which is the springboarding mass grave with the yellow musk creeper from Pathfinder. So that was the Stubborn Woods. Woo, big night, but we basically rescue Lork, become the heroes of that town, but Lord Soth's army found out about it and they send siege machines, and that is what led to night number 16, which was the Siege of Lork and the Forest War, which are these huge board encounters involving a siege machine, an ogre, booby traps, mines, craziness. The conclusion is that Lord Unuz was weekend at Bernie's up on, like he's already dead, but they put him like he wasn't, up on the bridge of the siege machine and put it on autopilot and drove it down into the army and exploded it. It's just crazy. Craziness. Okay, that settles down a little bit. Cade Evermoon, or Cade Underbottom, the half Umber Hulk brother of the halflings in our party, took mayorship of Lork because Lord Unuz had been killed, and he gets it under control. Everything's good. They fortify the town, and the heroes can move on to their main goal of the whole campaign, which is to return to Tower Evermoon, the home of Florian, where they can kind of establish a true base, a fortress of good in this world, and try to make a difference. So this is the next one, the road to Evermoon. They take a haunted stagecoach at the invitation of a vampire. Not a good idea. There's also a little sort of side quest called River Glen, where the ghosts of a bunch of halflings who were killed a century ago are still beseeching the players for help, and they experience time distortion. And then Blight Bridge, which is basically the entry to the remnants of High Forest. So if you're following along on the Sword Coast map, we're crossing the river near Lork over into High Forest, and there's this bridge which is guarded by Duragosa, the twin dragons. They managed to survive this stuff. It's crazy. Duragosa is like ebbing maggots and like eats this guy as he flies over the rapids. It's insane. We got like saves happening as people falling off the cliffs. Crazy. They pursue Duragosa to her lair, which is Swordfall, which is where the giant golem sword has fallen into the earth, and she's made her lair there. They managed to defeat her with the help of King Akram, who's been in the disguise as a low-level NPC, but then he reveals himself. King Akram and Drizzt go to Thunderhome to confront Argloasa, who is behind a lot of Lord Soth's plans, and to take the heads of Duragosa to her to prove that they mean business. Whoa. Meanwhile, the characters return to Lunara. They get back to Tower Evermoon and they say, okay, finally we've made it. And they realize Tower Evermoon is not what it used to be. Some terrible tragedy has befallen it. There is a freakish time distortion that's happening. Florian's daughter's grave is both there and not there. And a bunch of weird stuff happens. And then they meet Haddock Frack, who is a wizard who's been studying the time distortion phenomenon in Tower Evermoon, which is now a ruin. Then they start to ascend the ruin, Tower Evermoon, and they find Mira's window. This room was also called where Yensen killed the children. So this is when the tragedy befell Tower Evermoon 100 years ago, which is when Salag arose. The Evermoon family just crumbled into chaos and evil. And to spare all of the Evermoon children from becoming abominations, Yensen, the sort of family butler, hurled them out this window. So now the room where that window was is occupied by Mira, who is Florian's sister, who's become a 100-year-old vampire at this point, and she is pissed. In that battle, 2 of the players are infected with vampirism, but they move on. They get to Moon Bridge, which is a giant bridge. I think you guys have seen this, covered in spiders. They get through that. Time is moving back and forth. They get to the pinnacle of Tower Evermoon and confront Florian's cousin, Tralian Evermoon, who is this massive demon now with this great sword called the Red Splinter, which is their family heirloom. They're calling down lightning. Insane battle. He winds up falling to his death. Holy shit. But they realize the fight's not over. But that was night number 21. I know. So night number 22, they have to delve under the tower to find the source of this tragedy that happened and find what the hell Salag is in the first place. They go down. The snake grave is this terrible room where these giant snakes 90 years ago erupted from the ground and devoured most of the servants and other members of family Evermoon. Then the Lake of Venom. Far below the tower, there's an unknown oubliette, a system of caves with this blackish water. And there, a family of chuls has started to grow eggs. There was also a brief encounter with a library and a minotaur who is the lover of Mira, who is cursed to live down there. They find their way through the Lake of Venom with the frickin' awesome Staff of Fish Control, which they've been waiting to use for months. And they find their way finally into the Pit of Salag. Now, you guys have probably seen Salag. He's my tentacle creature. And they get down to the pit and they had to fight an Illithid. And this is a leveled up Mind Flayer while Salag was emerging from the portal, blasting them with spells. We had a lot of near deaths, and I gotta tell you guys, as a DM, playing an Illithid is absolutely spectacular. Really fun and sadistic, but also very fair. Really exciting encounter. They're using a machine called the Planar Prism. They're all about level 7. They lose control of the machine, and this is the shattering. This is where Toril itself went from a globe world into a floating 8-fragment world, a lot like a Sundered world by Awful Good Games from Dungeon World. So this was my gateway from a conventional D&D world into a Spelljammer world. Whew, so I know we're going through a lot. Okay, so after the Shattering of Toril, I had to regroup it creatively to make sure that we had the storyline ahead. So we did a couple of one-offs, and this is when Mokhtar was born, and this is when we started trying some different things like 2D terrain. And we did 2 one-offs, one called Of Salt and Silence, which is this escape from these horrible haunted salt mines, and then another one called Night of the Crack, which you're all probably very familiar with. Probably one of my favorite nights of gaming in the past several years. Night of the Crack was absolute poetry, both because I really was proud of the writing that I had done, but also the players really rose to the occasion and made it hilarious and made it exciting and fun and believed in it and gave themselves emotionally to the game, and it was fantastic. So those were some one-offs that we did just for a little bit of relief. Then we get back to the story, and the Shattering had teleported them against their will up to Frostfall. So if you guys have looked at any of the Pathfinder sort of Great North materials, I was inspired by that. So we did an ice world. They found Dreadmir's Door, which is the realm of this frost giant family, inspired by the Conan story. They get through Dreadmir's Gate, which is this portal guarded by a frost worm with a series of traps in front of it. If you guys look up the room design video, that's there too. And then they reached Port Frost. Port Frost was probably our biggest, most fun town night of the entire campaign. Now, a lot of you guys probably do town like every few nights. This is pretty much the second night that we ever even really did town. And I'm on night 24. So we're talking 48 plus weeks. We're talking a year of gameplay before we really got to do a fun town night. And Port Frost was a blast. The players had like 10 grand gold to spend. They knew they had to get a boat put together to get off this fragment of icy rock. They knew they had to get back in the fight and go fight Lord Soth. They had a bunch of crazy materials they had gathered over the previous months that they could craft into items. It's really fun, great times, kind of like going to the mall with like $1,000 in your pocket. And then we move on to the next big phase, which is their spelljamming now. So if you guys have seen my boat videos and stuff, they're in a flying galleon, and they go to Thunderhome, which in the canon is a mountain fortress occupied by Argloasa, the shadow dragon, and a bunch of dwarves who have fallen into sort of undead or shadowhood. But in our world is a floating mountain, because remember the world has been shattered. So they sail to Thunderhome because that's where Hankrin and Drizzt went to confront Argloasa with Duragosa's head. So they have to go see what happened. So that is where we get Poison Sky and Anvil Tower. Poison Sky is when I had my dragon harassing them while they're on their boat. Super fun encounter. Anvil Tower was basically a moorage point on Thunderhome, where a castle stuck out of the raw crags where you could moor a flying galleon, get in there, and then the dragon shows up again. Crazy encounter. I think there's a video for that one. Then they go underneath Anvil Tower down into Thunderhome. They see the lizard warrens, the wizard Lorens, which are basically this race of lizard men who are in service of Argloasa. Wow. Then into Fungus Fen, deeper into the cave. Fungus Fen you guys have seen. I don't think there's a room design on it, but this is where you have grabbing mushrooms, explosive mushrooms, brackish water, and then you have myconids that I powered up like 3x. Hell of a great room, really fun night. Pushing level 8 now, and then you're almost to now, so that we found Drizzt's body. They were performing all these rituals to keep him dead because Drizzt has this power to come back alive. And then they finally confronted Lord Soth, along with the Iron Golem, that the great crafters up in Canada, whose name I keep forgetting, they have an awesome name. It's like Warriors of Chaos or Chaos Dimensions miniatures. Anyway, they're great. So that's where that whole encounter happened, and they just fled. They just had to flee Thunderhome Mountain entirely. And here we are at the present day. So next up we have returning to Lunara and Tower Evermoon. They want to go to the Abyssal Gardens, which they've gotten a recent tip that that's where they could cure the vampirism that's been haunting their group. And then God knows what, and we're about to push level 9. fishes. Don't do dishes. And neither should you. The crazy thing is that you sum all that up, it sounds like a lot, but there's actually a scad of detail that is completely left out. The Globe of Seeing, Verkin Furnail, Scoots. I mean, the boy whose shadow was burned onto the wall. There's so many details. The man who only wanted turnips but was devoured by maggots. Or the fighter who fought for Unuz, who was mind controlled into standing perfectly still while she was devoured by Duragosa. Just wow. There's so many details, and you guys you've been through longer campaigns know how this feels. There's so many amazing details that when you start to think back about it, they just start revealing themselves. They're absolutely spectacular, and it's just never ever could I have conceived of those details as a part of my preparation phase. And that is the point of the entire video. There's no way to conceive of this many details, this many twists and turns, and this much substance. As a novelist, you can do it because you get to sit in silence over the course of months and retcon yourself over and over and over. But as a DM, you have players to deal with. So you can't prepare twists and turns. By definition, they're not prepared. They're surprises, and they're surprises to you as the game moderator as much as they are to the players who are the discoverers. And this is the lesson that I think is important for DMs, me, and you guys to constantly remember, is that the twists are surprises to you too. They aren't masterminded schemes that all come true because you're just that good. Never did I see this full scope of where this would all go over the course of 27 nights of gameplay. And actually, if you told me I was going to have to do this, I probably would have quit right at the beginning. It's crazy. It's craziness. But working through it and working through players' decisions and then playing off those decisions to build the next chapter, that's how it all got so crazy and how all that detailed was built. Because you have 5 or 6 minds working on the problem, rather than one person sitting there going, oh yeah, I'm going to mastermind a year of gameplay. Yeah, I got this. No, you don't. You will go crazy. You will get nervous. It will be very difficult, and it will not be fun. And remember, we're here to have fun, not invent a second job for ourselves. And so it's great to look back on this and see how wild and crazy it's gotten, because sometimes it is tough. It is tough to see where to take things, where to encourage the players to go. But when I look back at this, I realize how collaborative it really was. I did not have this entire arc determined until they helped me determine it. I didn't have this arc figured out until I started to see things they feared and things they had assumed maybe might be true, and I took those and turned them into truths. It's a classic technique of DMing. I never thought the Underdark would go on this long. It was cruelty. And then now I'm starting to see some player behaviors, commentary, and subtle things they say and believe that could give me an answer to this big question mark, which I know for a lot of you guys, and for me constantly, is the challenge of being a great DM. Is like, what's the question mark? What's the next chapter? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? How is it going to be awesome? It's going to be awesome not because I'm a mastermind preparer, but because I pay attention and I'm a good listener, and I am a sadistic, twisted trap layer, a deadly architect who takes what I hear and I will twist it on you, hoping that you're being as attentive as I was. That's the game. That really is one of the best descriptions I've given of what D&D really is a very Sherlock and Moriarty relationship of like, oh, I took your little clue, but I had already known, I already guessed you would give me that clue, and I already prepared this other clue, and that pushes me this way, but I knew you were going to push me that way, so I've already started to twist that. Whoa! So meta. Keep the chutzpah. at a level of moxie that is appropriate to the shtick of my strength, honor, and your freaking campaign will be awesome. Just let it happen. Let it grow out of freak show land.